Good morning, dear students. Today I will do Act 3, Scene 5. A portion of it has already been completed during the online classes. The remaining part of it will be done this coming Monday, much before your examination, so that you can prepare well for your examination. I am doing this video recording for some of the students who had for some reason missed out on the online classes, as well as for those students who had attended the online classes. This is for your reference. Follow it, learn from it, and prepare well for your examination. As you follow this video, kindly have your books open at page 61. Act 3, Scene 5. The scene opens in Belmont at Portia's garden. Enter Lancelot or Lancelot, as you prefer, you can pronounce, and along with him, Jessica. Lancelot was the clown, the comedian, and the jester in the play, known for his high intelligence and his unique ability to play with words, understand their different meanings, use the different meanings in the sentences during his speech to fit the meanings for his purpose, for his cause, and to his advantage. He was a Christian and he was indeed a smart chap. The other character, Jessica, was Shylock's daughter, the Jew's daughter, thereby herself a Jew. And she was married to Lorenzo, who was a Christian. Now remember that Lancelot shared a very good relationship with Jessica because he had worked for her father earlier and had lived in their household. They had shared, and they did share, a good relationship, just as he, their servant, and she, his master's daughter. Now, before I go on to explain the scene in detail, let me talk on the kind of relationship which the Jews and the Christians shared. The Christians formed the majority section of the population. They were many in number. They enjoyed all the facilities, privileges, and rights. They lived in the main sections of the cities and towns, and they considered themselves to be superior compared to the Jews, or they considered themselves to be superior to the Jews. The Jews, on the other hand, they formed the minority section of the society. They were few in number. They did not enjoy all the rights, privileges, and facilities like the Christians, and they were considered inferior to the Christians. They were looked down upon by the Christians, and they were not allowed to live in the main sections of the cities and towns. They were forced to live in the ghetto areas, these restricted areas and regions of the towns and cities. The word is ghettos, G-H-E-T-T-O-S, ghettos. Some books spell the word as ghettos, G-H-E-T-T-O-E-S, accepted. Now, what were these ghettos? These were restricted regions or sections in cities and towns where the living conditions were very poor. The citizens living there had almost no rights, privileges, or facilities. Even if they did, they were deprived of them. And such people as the Jews were forced to live in abject and total poor conditions. They faced extreme poverty, pain, suffering, and had to constantly work hard. Toil means work hard in order to survive. They were sometimes condemned, punished, and persecuted for sins or crimes they hadn't even committed. So that was the kind of life the Jews led during the time when this play was written. Now, keeping that in mind, let us have a look at the play, the scene. Lancelot spoke to Jessica and said, "Yes, truly, for you look, the sins of the father are to be laid upon the children. Therefore I promise you, I fear you. I was always playing with you, and so now I speak my agitation of the matter. Therefore be of good cheer, for truly I think you're damned. There is but one hope in it that can do you any good, and that is but a kind of bastard hope, neither." What it all means is, Lancelot was joking with her, taunting her and teasing her. He did not mean to insult her, he did not mean to embarrass her, he did not mean to demean her or hurt her in any way. He was just taunting and teasing her, and he said to her to indeed what he was going to say, to take note of it for herself, observe for herself what he was going to tell her was absolutely true and not a lie, not false, that children would have to pay for the sins of their father. He referred to the Old Testament from the Bible, precisely to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 5. Here, the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 5, he referred to it in order to prove his point correct, in order to prove what he was saying correct to Jessica, and said that according to the Holy Scriptures, the Bible, the Old Testament, the book of Exodus chapter 20 verse 5, it stated that the sins of the father would be avenged upon his children, indirectly meaning to tell her that she would have to pay for the sins of her father, that her father was a Jew, therefore he was a sinful man, and she, being his daughter, would have to pay for his sins, that his sins would be revenged upon her. That is what he meant to tell her, and he had asked her, yes, indeed, she should take note of that what he was saying for herself. And then he had gone on to say, I promise you, I fear you. He swore that he was worried and afraid regarding her fate, she being damned and her not receiving salvation. He was worried and afraid that she had been cursed by God for being the Jew's daughter, and she would be sent to hell after her death, where her soul would burn in the eternal fires of hell, and there was no escape from it. And all that because she was the Jew's daughter. And that is what he said he was afraid and worried about regarding her. And then he went on to say, as he had been very frank, honest, bold and upfront in sharing his views and opinions with her in the past when he used to work for her father, he would be honest, bold, upfront and frank on that occasion as well, when he was discussing with her or when he was talking with her on the matter of her fate being sealed, her damnation, and regarding her salvation at that point of time, there and then. Then he went on to say, therefore, be a good cheer, he said, that she should not get angry with him. She should be a good sport, taking it cheerfully with a smile and not get annoyed with him regarding what he was going to tell her next. And what was he going to tell her next? He said, indeed, truly, he thought that she was damned, that she was cursed by God for being the Jew's daughter and would be sent to hell after her death. Her soul would burn in the eternal fires. Eternal means burn in the fires of hell forever. And then he went on to say, there is but one hope in it that can do you any good, and that is but a kind of bastard hope neither. And he went on to say, but there was a single hope. There was one hope which could do her good, which could help her obtain salvation, which could save her from damnation. But he said that hope was an illegitimate hope, a false hope, a bastard hope. So here bastard means two meanings, it holds two meanings. One is it was a false hope, a hope that would finally betray her, and a hope that she could not be very sure and certain of and depend on. And the other meaning was, it was an illegitimate hope. Illegitimate meaning, here the word is illegitimate, I-L-L-E-G-I-T-I-M-A-T-E, illegitimate meaning that was unacceptable by law and religion as well as by society, including her. So he said that single hope which could do her good, that was an illegitimate hope. It would not be accepted in society by law and religion as well as by her. She would not want to accept it as well. So, it was a false and bastard, illegitimate hope. He also, a little later you will come to know what he actually meant to say by the use of bastard, what he was indicating or trying to indirectly say as far as she was concerned. So, she asked him next, requesting him to kindly let her know what was that single hope that which he was talking about, which could save her from damnation and help her to obtain salvation. And Lancelot in reply said to her, Mary, M-A-R-R-Y, Mary, you may partly hope that your father got you not, that you are not the Jew's daughter. He used the word Mary, M-A-R-R-Y, Mary, meaning in those days it was a word used as an expression of alarm, or it was used in the form of an exclamation to express surprise. The actual meaning is indeed, he said, indeed, she could only, partly means, see the word partly means only hope that her father had not given her birth, that her father had not begotten her, that her father was not her true, real, biological father. She could hope that. That was the hope that she had, and she could consider it. And hope that she was not the Jew's daughter, that she had not been given birth to by the Jew, that she was born, or some other man had given her birth. So that is what he had meant to say. Then Jessica in reply said, "That were a kind of bastard hope indeed, so that sins of my mother should be visited upon me." So she went on to tell Lancelot that in that case, if she were to consider that she wasn't the daughter of the Jew, that Shylock wasn't her father, that he had not given her birth, he wasn't her real biological father, that some other man had begotten her or given her birth, then in that case it would mean that her mother had been unfaithful to her father, that she had been out with another man, and Jessica was born out of that illegitimate relationship, unacceptable by law and religion and by society, that kind of a relationship. So it was indeed an unacceptable, illegitimate hope which Lancelot was talking about. She went on to say, if she were to consider that her father, Shylock, was not her true father, was not her biological father, was not her real father, it would mean that her mother had committed a grave sin of being unfaithful to her father. In that regard, in that case, she would have to pay for the sins of her mother. That the sins of her mother would be avenged upon her or revenged upon her. So she was caught both ways. She had no escape. Then Lancelot in reply had gone on to say, so here, just before I go on, this is where the word bastard fits in. Lancelot had asked Jessica, the only hope that could save her from damnation and help her obtain salvation for her soul after her death, was she considered herself to be a bastard born out of an illegitimate relationship which her mother had. And then Jessica had replied to him saying that in that case she would have to pay for the sins of her mother. Lancelot to that replied, truly then I fear you are damned both by father and mother. Thus when I shun Scylla, I fall into Charybdis, your mother. Well, you are gone both ways. Again, truly, then I fear you are damned both by father and by mother. Thus, when I shun Scylla, your father, I fall into Charybdis, your mother. Well, you are gone both ways. What did he mean to say? He meant to say that she was caught from both ends, from her father's side as well as from her mother's side, from her father's end as well as from her mother's end. There was no escape for her. She was facing damnation, if not for her father's sins, it was definitely would be for her mother's sins, and that she would not receive salvation for her soul, if not from her father's end. It would definitely be that she would be sent to hell, her soul would be sent to hell, and it would burn in the eternal fire of hell for the sake of her mother's sins. She was in the same kind of helpless, trapped situation as many sailors had been in the past, referring to the old Greek classical legends. He went on to compare her situation with the situation of those sailors who had been caught between these two monsters, Scylla, S-C-Y-L-L-A, Scylla, and Charybdis, C-H-A-R-Y-B-D-I-S. These two were dreadful monsters. Scylla, a man, and Charybdis, a woman. They were dreadful monsters during the Greek classical age, taken from the Greek classical legends, and they used to set themselves posing as dreadful rocks. Scylla would pose as these dangerous, dreadful rocks, and Charybdis would take the form of this fatal means causing death, fathomless, bottomless, spiraling, moving fast like a spiral, a whirlpool at one end of the strait that separated Italy, the mainland of Italy, and the island of Sicily. So Sicily here, S-I-C-I-L-Y, it is an island which is a part of Italy, but it is separated from Italy by this strait, and these two monsters, as mentioned in the Greek legends, Scylla would take the form of these rocks and place himself at one end of this strait, and Charybdis would take the form of this fatal, spiraling, fathomless, bottomless whirlpool and set herself on the other end. They would together trap sailors and kill them or wreck their boats and drown them. If by chance some sailors did escape one, they had definitely been caught by the other. So they had no chance. Their situation was helpless. And here Lancelot compares her father and his sins, her father, to be Scylla, and her mother he compares with this monster Charybdis, and says that she was caught between the two monsters, Scylla, her father, and Charybdis, her mother, just like the sailors used to get caught and be killed during the Greek classical age, referring to the Greek classical legends. So he compared her father Shylock to be Scylla, and he compared Charybdis to be her mother, or her mother to be Charybdis and her father to be Scylla. And she was like those sailors, helpless, with no escape, caught between them. And it would only mean that she was damned. There was no escape for her. She was going to be sent to hell. If not for her father's sins, definitely it would be for her mother's sins. Then said that, Jessica replied to him. Jessica said, I shall be saved by my husband. He had made me a Christian. And she said that she would be saved, rescued, redeemed by her husband, Lorenzo, who was a Christian. He would convert her to become a Christian, and that way she would be saved from damnation and her soul would obtain salvation. And she too indirectly referred to the Bible, the book of Corinthians. Here, the book of Corinthians, Corinthians, Corinthians chapter 7 verse 14, to prove her point that she would not be damned, she would receive salvation for her soul, she would obtain salvation for her soul. Because her husband was a Christian, and she would be saved because he would convert her to become a Christian. And according to the book of Corinthians, chapter 7 verse 14, it is mentioned that the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. The unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband, meaning that an unbelieving wife, the unbelieving you can say, means the non-Christian wife, a wife who was not a Christian, would be purified, would be sanctified, means would be purified by her Christian husband if he were to marry her. So a non-Christian wife would be purified by a Christian husband, so she would not be damned and she would receive salvation, contrary to, opposite to what Lancelot was trying to tell her and make her grow frightened thinking of that. Here Lancelot then replied and said, truly the more to blame he. We were Christians enow before, yen as many as could well live one by another. This making of Christians will raise the price of hogs. If we grow all to be pork eaters, we shall not shortly have a rasher on the coals for money. What it all means is, Lancelot went on to say, indeed her husband Lorenzo was to be blamed more for it. Why was it so? Being a Christian, he meant to say, Lorenzo being a Christian, was an irresponsible man and was irresponsible to the Christian community at large, causing damage to the Christian community. In what way causing damage? Because he would help a Jew to become a Christian, thereby allowing the Jew to cut in, to encroach on the limited resources, on just the sufficient resources that they had been enjoying till then. What is the meaning of cut-in? Cut-in means that he would be helping a Jew to first be converted to a Christian, then share with the Jew all the facilities, all the resources which the Christians had for themselves, thereby adding pressure onto the limited resources which the Christians had and were enjoying till then. And then he went on to say, have a look at the text. Truly indeed the more to blame he. We were Christians enow. Enow means enough. There were enough Christians in number already before he converted her to become a Christian. Ian means even in this context, meaning quite a good number that could be considered sufficient. They were already a very good number of Christians living in Italy at that point of time till then, and they were already sufficient number of them living along each other, living with each other, sharing all the resources which were just enough or sufficient or adequate, adequate, adequate for themselves till then. Now, if the number of Jews who were being converted to become Christians increased, it would certainly cause a burden to the Christians. And in what way it would be a burden for the Christians? Because in that case, it would raise the price of pork in Italy. Do you understand that? So this making of Christians, so this Jews being converted to Christians would soon raise the price of pork or pig meat in Italy. And then he went on to say, if we grow all, to be pork eaters, we shall not shortly have a rasher on the coals for money. And he said, if at that rate, if at that rapid rate in which Jews were being converted to become Christians, if it continued, soon the Christians, the original Christians who lived in Italy till then with all the facilities available to them in sufficiency or adequately, they would soon face a crisis. They would soon face scarcity. As far as pork was concerned, there would be scarcity of pork in Italy if the number of Jews were to be converted at that rate to become Christians, at that rapid rate to become Christians. Then there would be scarcity of pork in Italy, and the original Christians, even if they had the money and even if they were willing to pay the high price for pork or a slice of bacon to roast it on coal fire and enjoy it, they would not get even a slice of bacon for themselves to roast it and enjoy it on coal fire. That would be the situation if the number of Jews who were being converted to become Christians at that rapid rate, if all the Jews were soon to be converted to become Christians, soon there would be scarcity of pork, and the Christians, the original Christians who enjoyed the facilities in Italy, they would, even if they had the money and even if they were willing to pay the high price for pork, they would not get a slice of bacon available for themselves to roast on coal fire and enjoy it. Now, gentlemen, as these two characters were talking with each other, Lorenzo entered the scene. From here onward, I will explain to you in the next video. Thank you, gentlemen.